yesterday, Don Calloway and Omi Bell, they were on. We were having a conversation. I think we were talking about Beyonce, but not really. We're talking more about, the brouhaha around Beyonce and the country music that she's put out and people's reaction. And we talked a little bit about Angel Reese. And Don made a statement. Smith, I don't know. Were we able to find it? If not, I'll paraphrase. 866. You got it? Okay. I just want to play a little bit of what he said about centering whiteness.
I actually listened to the album start to finish 2 times. I thought it was remarkable. And I must say that one of the most remarkable aspects was that you have these interludes by Willie Nelson and Dolly Parton, which are charming and interesting and cute, but they're ultimately really, really sad. Because as Willie Nelson speaks explicitly too on one of them, you ultimately needed these senior statesmen of white America to validate this woman. Her entire lifetime of greatness didn't validate her in your eyes that she could have the audacity to attempt to do this work. But you ultimately needed Willie Nelson and Dolly Parton to speak up for you, because who could disagree with them? Are you more country than them? Maybe sad is not the right word, but I found it interesting that to some degree, there's this need to be validated by
hold up, time out.
She shouldn't have had to use them. It was a flex that she did, but let's be clear. Willie Nelson says, and I want to say it as closely as I can remember, but he says on the track, sometimes you don't know what you like until someone you trust puts you onto some good SHI blank. And he says, that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I'm here. Like, my point is that after 30 years of being an incredibly amazing, 20 years of being an incredibly amazing artist, Beyonce shouldn't need Willie Nelson to validate her in country spaces.
Now, we ended up coming back from break. We had a discussion about it during the break. Omi and I, kind of pounced. For me, hearing that, I roundly rejected it, even though he's not wrong. He wasn't wrong. And sometimes you have to sit in what someone is saying. And I got what he was saying when he said it. There's a part of me that has a visceral reaction to any centering of whiteness. I almost want to pull that pendulum all the way back to the other side. But I absolutely want everyone to center themselves. Like, you are the star of your story. But I understand. I mean, we live in a world that, this is our reality, right? Some of you right now are in corporate America, where you have to, have somebody validate your work in order to be seen or deemed valuable. And it's in that validation where you see, and listen, I get to watch it play out in media. Somebody sitting in a C-suite in an executive office is sitting on their throne deciding which among us will be the pick-me Negro for this season. Which one do they feel comfortable with? Which one do they like? Which one? And I'm categorizing it just the way it is, because I met you at a party. Because I've been at those parties and I've navigated some of these spaces, and today I sit in rejection of it. So what you see a lot is, in my mind, I'm saying, can we win without that? Do I have to glad hat and press the flesh and smile and kiki and pretend at parties and go to every party? And well, if you don't go, then they're going to see you as not being a team player. And how many of us have shown up to the events and put on our fancy digs and sat the whole night, bored out of our minds, sitting there smiling and laughing and giggling and pretending with people that you not only don't like but don't respect, but they have your future in their hands? You're going to do that. There are people that are really good at it, and you'll see them on TV, and they may or may not be talented. That doesn't matter, because you throw enough money behind somebody, damn it, y'all gonna watch. You will. Me too. Some of it. Sometimes, but it got me thinking, because, when you hear me rail against something, I'm going to rail against somebody today. I'm not railing against them as much as I am the system that put them in that seat, that gave them the battery in their back, that told them that they were the magical Negro that they are not, that told them that they are special, that told them they're so smart, that told them that they think more deeply than anybody else. And here, sir, ma'am, is your microphone to prove it. And here's a check that goes along with it that validates it. And then you get the followings, right? Because then you'll have 1 million people follow you and it'll reinforce that you are that person. And you're doing for the culture in your mind. You're elevating the conversation for the culture because after all, there's nobody else that can do that because that man told me that I'm the one. And I look around and I'm I'm so much smarter because I may come from a better place. I had 2 parents, whatever the hell narrative you tell yourself, but the reality is you are a weapon used against those of us who have been deemed the folk that will always be at the bottom of the food chain, except we're not. We're actually the drivers of the food chain. We are actually the food in the food. We are the food chain. So I have spent, maybe it'll be now 10 years. Yep. Consistently before that, 4 years in New York on a small station called WWRL, basically saying the same thing, which is, if the folk that came here and built the nation, literally on their backs, everything from the White House to everybody else's house, to the economy, from the insurance industry to the banking industry, that's all built, Wall Street built on those auction blocks, right? Not diminish people brought here with skills, taught you how to vaccinate. Those people in chains taught people here how to vaccinate, how to plant rice, how to plant cotton, how to plant tobacco after they turned the soil to sand. Suckled your children, were bred. And you're mad about all of these amazing athletes. It's a wild, wild place that has no memory, or worse, mythology in place of memory, which is where we are, right? So I was watching, as I mentioned, the NCAAs this weekend. The women, I haven't watched a single minute of the men. This is exciting basketball. And I was like, why is it exciting? Because I'm old enough to remember Cheryl Miller and Cynthia Cooper and the McGee twins, and I'm old enough to remember Teresa Edwards and Lynette Woodard. I'm old enough to remember Nancy Lieberman even and Carol Blazdowski. I'm old enough to remember Gail Marquise. I'm old enough to remember a time when even Marion Jones, the Olympian who was disgraced, poor Oprah doing that to that girl on TV. How
you doing?
Hey, for North Carolina, that North Carolina team that had the niece of a brother that could take a quarter off the top of the damn backboard, off the stanch of a basketball hoop, who had Marion Jones on there who could dunk. Like I remember sitting in a stadium watching them warm up, and every single girl on the team could dunk, and I was like, this is incredible. There were better eras and genres of basketball, even Kim Mulkey's era with Vivian Stringer coaching not just Cheney State, that team was ridiculous, but Iowa, there was Michelle Edwards, and I'm just going off top, people who were great. This is not the best basketball I've ever seen for the women, so let me just say that. But what it is it's theater. You have teams that people root for and against. They were calling it, like kind of a race thing. There was a hashtag that I mentioned yesterday around race because, the white people were rooting for Iowa and Caitlin Clark, and the black people were rooting for LSU, had me out there rooting for Kim Mulkey's ass. And then they post a video of her giving dap. And I was like, do I like her now? That she knows how to do dap? No, she's still problematic. I'm going to stick that over there with her Liberace inspired outfits. I'm going to stick her right over there. I could root for her young ladies on that team without rooting for her. And that's what I did. So they lost. And they lost primarily because Angel Reese was injured. She got injured in the first half. I watched it happen. I said she can never come back with that same energy. And she didn't. And they lost 94-87. Caitlin Clark had to drop 41 points because there's not really anybody else on that team but Caitlin Clark and another young lady that are halfway decent. It's not like there's a team of great players. But what was interesting was the commentary. You know, we had that LA Times piece by that guy that called them villains and other names. And then it harkened back to the nappy-headed hoe days of Don Imus, who was fired and then rehired because, you know, old races never really die. They're like Bebe's kids. We're in the midst of they've multiplied and they've shown up in so many different ways, even in black bodies. That's crazy. So we had the apology and all of that. And by the way, that game was the most watched game in women's college basketball history. 12.3 million people. That's more than everyone who watches cable news. Fox, MSNBC, and CNN combined. And then you can even throw in, name a TV show that's very popular. That's a lot of people. We haven't seen numbers like that in a while. The World Series, just to put it in perspective, 11.4 million. They have more people watching a women's college basketball game than watched the World Series last year. Just put it in perspective. It makes it one of the most viewed games in sports, NFL as well. So why? Was it the race thing? 866-801-8255. So then you have this guy, Emmanuel Acho, who I've had on the show. It was a underwhelming interview. I cut it short, Smiz, if I'm not mistaken. Did we run it? Was it a pre-tape? I don't think it was even live. Did we ever run that interview? Did we run it? We ran it. Okay. Boring, talking points, full of himself. Not really good with being, challenged too much. And I was sitting there. I was like, yo, this guy has no depth. And he's out here. They got him out here talking that talk. Why? Because he talks that talk. Very loud. So I'm going to play a clip from him. Trigger warning for those of you who don't like the sound of his voice. It's like nails on a chalkboard for me. I'll have to be honest with you. I don't spend a lot of time watching him. I feel like he thinks more highly of himself than he ought. A lot of us do. But this guy really thinks more highly of himself. And I don't know. Yeah, you play football not well. You ain't win you ain't got a Super Bowl ring. Does he have a Super Bowl? Let me make sure because I'm going off the top of my head and I've been boycotting football long enough that I don't know and I don't care about football enough to know stats. But let me see how long he played. He played NFL. He was a linebacker, played for the Longhorns, was drafted by the Cleveland Browns in the 6th round, 2012. He was traded in 2013, traded to Philadelphia, where he played until he retired 2 years later. All right. You weren't great as a football player. You were not great. I would say you weren't even good as an NFL player based on these stats that I'm looking at. 1.2, let me see, 24 reps. No, I don't even see any good stats. I don't even see, you weren't good enough for them to have stats in your Wikipedia. But you have a microphone to talk about things, and it's usually around race because you make white folk comfortable. I'm gonna say it. You make them comfortable. They feel very comfortable around you. That should make you uncomfortable unless the check is that good. Is the check that good? Is it good enough? Is it good enough for you to sell out? And maybe you think you're doing something good, sir. I don't know. But I'm going to play this clip. It was very annoying listening to you say these things. So I'm going to let you say your things, and then I'm going to say some things. Play it, Smith.
I'm about to give a gender-neutral, racially indifferent take. Now, if you want to say, well, Acho, cater your take based upon gender, Acho, cater your take based upon race, I will understand that. But I'm about to give a gender-neutral, racially indifferent take. Angel Reese, you can't beat a big bad wolf, but then kind of cry like Courage the Cowardly Dog. Because if you want to act grown, which she has, if you want to get paid like you grown, which you are, if you want to talk to grown folks like you grown, which you did post-game when you told a coach for an opposing team, watch your mouth. If you want to tell people get your money up, then post-game when you take an L, you just got to take it on the chin. Nobody mourns when the villain catches an L. And Angel Reese, you have self-proclaimed to be the villain. Shout out to you because you were the second best basketball player on the court and it was not close. Outside of Caitlin Clark, it was you. 17 and 20, dog, showed up, biggest game, second biggest game of your career, absolute dog, but you can't under any circumstance go to the podium and now try to ask for individuals to give you sympathy. No one has sympathy for the villain. You painted the bullseye on your back. Why are you surprised when people shoot at you? So if you want to act grown, if you want to pose grown, if you want to talk grown, if you want to talk to grown folks grown, then you got to take the L like you grown. Because what frustrated me is when you want to be the villain, but you want to hope for sympathy like a hero.
First of all, I played Angel Reese's clip yesterday. She was in tears, not asking for sympathy, but talking about the amount of pressure that has been on her, the death threats, the sexualization, the calling out of her name. I don't know how many of you have been 19 or 20 or 21. But I know in my 20s, I couldn't have handled that. I thank God every day I didn't grow up in an era of social media. I would have either been one of the worst people to walk this earth for defending myself and then going on the offense because that's my go-to, or I would have been crushed totally and never reached my potential. I don't even know how young people survive today with social media. I just do not. It is the biggest space, it's the biggest marketplace for cowards because they don't confront you. There's doxing, swatting, people send people to your house, get your address. It's wild out here. And to be a world-class athlete as a teenager, 19, 20, all this attention is on you. And then all of this commentary. So she embraced it the way Lizzo embraced it. But at some point, that's not truly who you are. And for the first time, I heard Angel Reese yesterday when I played that clip. I heard the young lady that has a lot on her just because she plays basketball well. And yes, as is flamboyant and is demonstrative and all of that, I'm going to put that on Kim Mulkey. I feel like, you go as your coach goes in many ways. 866-801-8255. But I also noticed she's a young lady. Can she get some grace? Who are you? Emmanuel Acho? And then you're going to call her a dog. And then you parrot the villain bull crap that came out of the LA Times, which the LA Times erased because guess what? It was problematic language. We're in 2024. Yes, I know people, is everyone so sensitive? Yeah, because everyone's also so insensitive. And you have a microphone that goes wide. You're on ESPN. You're opening your mouth to call a black woman a dog and a villain and excoriate her for having emotions after losing a game on national television and feeling like the weight of the world is on her because she was the one. She didn't equivocate about, she didn't talk about how, she wanted sympathy for the loss. You are a problem. And you're doing this for the likes and the clicks and the pat on the head and the attaboy that you get. But it's problematic and it's destructive. And to whom much is given, much is required. If you have a microphone to speak, and this is what's coming out of your mouth, and you can't give a gender neutral conversation about women's basketball in a misogynistic patriarch. You just can't. I'm sorry. It just can't be gender neutral. You're talking about women. It's not gender neutral. And it's not racially indifferent in a racist society. You have the depth. Good speech, right? I'm annoyed. And I'm more annoyed that people like this guy keep giving them the spotlight, those gatekeepers, instead of, because we're talking about, so guess what it's doing? It's driving the algorithms and then ESPN. They love that. So they look at the numbers. That's all they do is look at the numbers. Oh, the numbers are great. All right. When you renegotiate, here's more money. But the damage should be also considered. But that's on us. Okay. Our voices need to be loud enough the way the sisters from those sorority sisters wouldn't allow them to have a basketball wives, housewives type show featuring women wearing sorority letters and colors. No. Guess what? Those sisters were like, no, it's not happening. And I suspect Good Times ain't getting a second season. I can't prove it, but I suspect that that's the case. And it will only be because we spoke up. So that's the message, right? 866-801-8255 is the number.
I want you to say yes. I need you to do more and say less.